Okay, so I'm going to do a lead in.
Okay.
Great. So here I am with Toby. It's the beginning of
Hey.
the week or the end of the week or somewhere in between. And today
Yes.
we're going to do an experimental mood board jam, I'm calling it. We're going to look at some imagery and just see what occurs to us. And that we're going to bear in mind that we could look for elements that might go in a pitch. In particular, we might be looking for a dramatic question of some kind or an issue of some kind, things that
Okay.
could help us develop story messages later on, or we might just come up with an idea for a concept for a cover or something. So we'll see what happens. And so first, I'll have a word from our sponsor, as we usually do. Laudanum,
Yeah.
brought to you by Laudanum, because
Mm.
babies should be seen and not heard. I just love these.
Very good.
I mean, I know that we could look back and with a supercilious sort of smugness, like how stupid we were then. But of course, in the future, we'll be looking back on now and saying how stupid we were then. So I guess this is a reminder that our education is never done. There are things that even now we take for granted or think are wise that we're going to think are very silly. What is the modern day equivalent of bloodletting, I ask you? So we'll have to think about that. All right, so I'm going to pop open this mood board in a moment, and I'm going to give us, well, let's see. We just need maybe let's say 5 minutes to sort of kick around things that come to mind. And then we might go from board to board and then come back, because perhaps they will all sort of have something that gels together. So I'm going to start the timer now and remove the first cover.
Mm. Oh, okay. Right. It's all of these things.
Yeah, it's all of these things. These are things that somehow I thought might be related.
I do like the people all on their phones in front of the night watch. It's very good.
That's great, isn't it? What does that make you think of when you see that image? I'm just looking for words or concepts or thoughts.
Gosh. Is it solipsism?
How do you even spell that?
Well, let me just check. It is that.
Solipsism? I don't. I'm. My spelling is atrocious.
So solipsism, SOLIPSISM. So solip and then schism. The view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist, the quality of being self-centered or selfish.
Okay, the quality of being self-centered. That is a great, yes. That is, I think.
But also that nothing is knowable outside the existence of our own brains. That's the idea of it, is you can't prove that anything else exists. That reality could just be a product of our mind. And obviously, that's not true, because it would be a lot more entertaining if it was the product of my mind, let me tell you.
Well, this, I think we have something here about don't believe everything you think.
Yep, exactly. So it's you're dealing with reality versus perception, which is the same thing with the blind guy being led by the person with the phone.
Or the other way around. I think the blind guy is leading the phone person.
Yes, no, that's what, yeah.
So wait, what you just said, I loved what you just said a moment ago, something versus perception. What was it? Reality versus perception? Was that?
Reality versus perception, yeah.
Okay. So that's just a nice one. And this image here, the child sort of eating himself, is sort of that solipsism on a plate.
Yes, quite. Quite. Well, I mean, it feeds into that algorithms on the internet will feed you the things you already believe in. You know, if you like this, why don't you click this, because you already agree with it.
So this is like echo chamber.
It's echo chambers, and then the whole Netflix idea, which also uses algorithms, is the idea of, well, you found this entertaining once, so maybe you'll find this entertaining because it's just like the other thing. And of course, all Netflix things are kind of the same now.
You know, tray that says like endless scroll. It sort of keeps you hooked.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
I have to say I like this Netflix one because what struck me about it is that looking at the thing below where it says "consume, be silent, die." I think when you and I were younger, there was
mm,
a movement that was sort of anti-advertising movement where corporate sponsors and this sort of thing was seen as pretty evil. People were upset about this idea of invading your mind and filling you with sort of uh, predominant cultural nonsense. But what strikes me as interesting about this image, because it's a throwback, right, with the cereal and all
mm,
that, but it strikes me as perplexing because Netflix doesn't aim to fill you with the predominant social ideology necessarily. It's trying to find
mm,
all these niches that you can inhabit. So it's quite the opposite of what the argument was, I think, when we were younger, that you would have that there's this homogenous culture that's forcing itself on you, whereas Netflix is sort of the niche meister, and that
mm.
in itself is kind of a strange altered reality. And that's why I also thought this is kind of an interesting, maybe this is the Netflix board meeting, this sort of
Right.
idealized world where we live in this place of lofty ideas because our buildings are floating, but then we're kind of gagged in some way to, whatever we say is executed. I don't know. And then
Well,
this
or
thing here,
it's
go ahead. Yeah.
but what if it's what the guys are saying that's keeping that city afloat?
Oh, I see. Right. So, how can we say what we say keeps our system afloat?
Mm-hmm.
This is very, very apropos to the stock market right now. If for anyone who's aware of the time in which we're recording this, we have absolutely horrendous economic situation in the U.S. with unemployment that is beyond depression era figures. We have this raging pandemic and this terrible response to it, and we just have you go down the line, and yet the stock market is the highest it's ever been. NASDAQ broke all records. I mean, it's just, and so there's this feeling of, yes, we've got to keep hyping this thing up so it doesn't all collapse.
Yeah.
So I like that. Yeah, hype. Let's see, it's like a hype machine. What I like about that is it's the opposite of sort of, remember 1984 with what was the ministry that
Yeah. Yeah.
cleanses speech and all this and that, and so
Yes.
they're trying to reduce speech down to the most economical, efficient, optimized way. But yet what we're doing is the opposite. It's like we got to hyperinflate everything to make it all seem great. Double plus good.
Mm.
So I guess in some ways
Yes.
they are rated, but I'm going to just say we live in the double plus good. There we go. All right, so that was just and the future belongs to those who can see. I like that image too.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to come back to that, but we're doing a kind of whirlwind tour of mood boards to see what happens.
Okay, geez.
And
Right.
I know it's a brain overload, but maybe when we come back, we'll have some new insights. So we're going to do another 5 minutes on this one.
All
Same thing. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay.
All right. What thoughts do you have when you see this? I feel like I'm a Rorschach test, like I'm a therapist. Tell me, Toby, what do you see
Tell me,
when you see these
what
images?
stuff do I see? Boy. Okay. I mean, I suppose it's interesting they're taking sort of glamour photos and poses and putting them over some of the superimposing great art over them.
I'm gonna just add this word because it made me think of it when I looked at it this time.
Mm.
You know how people complain
Yes.
about cultural misappropriation.
Mm.
I guess that's what I was thinking when I pulled these images together. I didn't know what it was. I just kind of went on
Mm-hmm.
first instinct, and I think that's
Yeah.
we have cultural
Yeah.
misappropriation of old art, sacred sort of art figures, and then we have this weird ad down here where this
Mhm.
ad is for Berlitz, and this idea that you can speak like a native, and something is really disturbing about this advertisement.
That is tremendously disturbing.
Yeah. Um,
Oh dear.
yeah. I just don't know what to make of that. Um, there's just a very commercial quality of taking something that we revered in a museum to
Mm-hmm.
this level. Kind of a cheapening, I guess. And then I don't know why, but this sort of felt like part of it. This sort of where do you want to go today? This is Microsoft's tagline, right? It used to be.
Right. Right. I mean, there are at least different ethnic types in those heads. I think,
Mm.
although no different genders.
Oh, interesting. Do we? I mean, is
But
this
I would have to look.
is
at
this
that.
sort of the?
Oh no, there are different genders. Sorry, I apologize. There definitely are.
You're right. It's the lighting of the store,
Yeah.
as many supermarkets do. They kind of wash out stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
is that sort of an ideal that we're heading towards, where it's sort of hey, we don't gender, ethnicity, all this stuff just sort of fades away. We're all looking for a kind of will consumerism save us in our?
But there's a question, which is it all leading to fluid sexuality, or do people just want to be able to self-identify permanently as whatever they want? This implies a temporariness to it, in that, oh, today I'm going to be this. And I think this is where a lot of these current word wars are taking place, are about, I'm not looking for an identity for today. This is what I identify as.
Mm.
But then we get into, is it fluid? Is that what you want to be today?
I
Which
sort of
pronoun do you want today?
I don't know what the I don't think of liberal as the opposite of conservatism. I think that's sort of a false dichotomy. But I put conservatism here because I think that many conservative people find the issue about gender and sexuality very, very disturbing, because they I think conservatism is about kind of keeping certain things from changing, sort of wanting to retain a certain level of status quo, because they feel that that is for the good. So this is almost like an anti-conservatism idea, and so makes me think of, is consumerism against conservatism slightly, because this notion that consumers are always looking for the better, bigger, better, that kind of thing. So bigger, better, cheaper, faster, pussycat, kill. All right, we're 10 seconds in from the end, and I think rather than going all the way down the mood boards, that's just going to blow our mind. I'm going to stop there and sort of think about like kind of these two, maybe return to the first one. So we've had, just to kind of recap here, this is what we came up with so far, sort of issues of fluid or permanent sexuality, consumerism, cultural misappropriation, that sort of, again, fluidness. Where do you want to go today? Who do you want to be? And, would Mona Lisa maybe want to be that today? The girl with the pearl earring. Is this who they would choose to be today?
Right.
Or is this how we reflect ourselves upon them? And so going back to this for a moment, now we've sort of had that whole crazy thing. Let's see if we have any new perspectives on this. So let's see, what could we set ourselves a target? Maybe we could come up with some issues or dramatic questions, let's say. Let's give ourselves, we'll do 5 minutes and see what happens. Okay. So going back, kind of refreshing our memory, we had this reality versus solipsism. Yeah, that was a great start. Solipsism, really liked that. It's a kind of there's a kind of masturbatory thing. I don't know why. There's something that makes me the French milking machine. For some reason, comes to mind. But this idea that we are just really indulging ourselves over and over again, rinse, repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to build ever bigger ideas or utopian visions or something. We can't just sort of...
Okay. Yeah. So can culture harm us?
Okay. Or, okay, can culture harm us? Or actually, I just like the notion of cultural harm.
Yeah. Culture side.
Yeah, that's good. Culture side. That actually makes a great topic. So I'm gonna, I like that.
Does the triumph of the individual kill society?
Okay. Here, write some of those down if you can. So
Oh, sorry. Okay.
so I got to get you working too, man. Not just your brain. Get your fingers going.
Okay.
So
All right.
let's see, cultural harm. So culture side, I made it into a topic. I made that blue because I thought that's kind of our topic color.
I see.
And
you could even do it with the German. You could do it with the K. Oh, look at that!
You did it. I'm gonna just do hype machine. So I can get rid of that one.
Jesus, big triumph.
So while you're figuring that out, we're learning on the fly here. It's this is how we do it, but flying by the seat of our pants. Don't believe everything you think. I love this sort of idea of maybe something like sometimes I just duplicate these to make my life easier. So I'm making this. This is my. This is another issue possibility. Should we really question everything? Because that could lead to confusion and self-harm and all that. It's sort of. I like this obey, right? Just consume, be silent, die. Just, you'll be much happier, much safer. It's sort of an idea of does self-reflection really bring us freedom or something?
Yeah.
That's in sort of a question to that the future belongs to those who can see. Is sort of, does self-reflection really free us? Because it strikes me as kind of the opposite. The Garden of Eden. Maybe this young boy is Adam, the modern Adam in the Garden of Eden. I'm just living off myself.
Yeah. I'm sure we've done this one before.
And these guys are practicing safe social distancing practices here. Oh, no, these guys are too close together, but they've got masks on.
So there you go. Except it's not covering the nose. So they're wearing their mask like most Republicans.
This has to be in the land of the blind. The one-eyed man is free, is king. Except that the one-eyed man is a blind man. This is really bad. Does the future belong to those who can see it? Makes me think of something like, is the future already over? Like this, the triumph of the individual leads to the destruction of society. Yeah, that's a good one. These two are kind of related. Should we really question? We are happiest alone. Culture side, okay. I feel like we didn't quite capture the, okay, that's the timer. I feel like we didn't quite capture the sort of, I like the echo chamber, endless scroll, if you like this, then this, sort of,
Right.
You know what it is? It's like combining solipsism with narcissism. Right?
Gosh. Yeah.
How can we bring those two together? I mean, that's what I was thinking is the French milking machine. It's sort of, it's
Right.
like this thing. It's like the bloviator milking machine. Let's see. Society built on bloviation. That's the double plus good. So maybe this is a sort of cautionary thing about being too excited about the possibilities, too idealistic, too I can't quite find the right word for it, but the bloviation. Everything is what I tell you, but also I'm going to hype it up as well. It's a hype bloviator. All right, I'm going to put that. That's my last contribution. Hype bloviator. Like a pilot. The chief bloviator. All right. So we got a few there. What we say keeps our system afloat. Yeah, okay. There's some things we can come back to. I like that. All right, let's return to this lovely thing here and give ourselves 5 minutes to consider this thing here. So,
okay.
Topics or issues? Well, I think this thing is a topic, so I'm going to turn that into a topic color. Cultural misappropriation. And you were interested in the sort of fluidity of identity. I guess we focused on sexuality, but
to destroy culture is to free ourselves.
To destroy culture is to free ourselves.
So it's to destroy the icons of culture is to free yourself.
So that's interesting because topically right now, again, sorry, because I'm in the U.S., we have people removing Confederate statues, right? So these are considered to be icons of a past that some people argue we should preserve, and instead of arguing we should preserve it so we can have a conversation, it's really there's basically not being very genuine. There's very disingenuous by saying let's preserve it because we like what this reminds us of. But if it was, there's a difference, I suppose, between preserving for having an ongoing conversation versus because we want to intimidate or remind people of a glorious past that other people are frightened of. But but that is toppling icons, isn't it? It's
yes.
And this picture here of the supermarket is this sort of like glorious socialism, consumerist socialism, sort of. So toppling idols. Okay, so
there's two different things. So I shop, therefore I am goes with the bottom one, and kind of the cultural misappropriation of the other. Although again, it's the idea that you can flit around and decide your own identity. Doesn't that make identity meaningless?
Okay. So if this is like let's
if
see.
you can be anything, what are you?
Okay. So that's interesting.
We are as much defined by what we're not as what we are.
But what if we say something like let me make this into an issue and say we are more defined by what we are not. That's sort of a strong statement. We're more defined by what we're not than obviously what we are. Let's see. What can we say about this art of the past? Something about the preservation of the past. Preservation of culture, preservation of heritage. There's something that we're missing here. Preservation of past Heritage.
Well, and is that harmful, right? Should every generation begin anew with a clean slate, right? Is heritage bad?
Mm.
Is, I
Heritage
guess, what I'm
holds
trying to
us
get at.
hostage. There we go. How about that?
Yes, there you go.
I
That's
love the
good.
alliteration, man. Got to do that.
Okay.
Heritage
All
holds
right.
us hostage. So that's another kind of definitive statement. That's like a resolution. Heritage holds us hostage. We are more defined by what we're not. Yes, and this is sort of mashup. I was thinking of is this concept of mashup, revolution. Mm-hmm. And also sort of cheap and
The
easy.
idea also that
Mm.
by speaking like a native makes you a native.
Okay. Yeah.
That somehow can you learn to become someone else? The answer is no, because you're always going to put it through the prism of who you are, who you think you are. But what they're selling is no, you will inhabit somebody else, or somebody else will inhabit you.
I see. So it's like invasion of
It's
the
almost
language
like,
snatchers.
Yes, it's like being possessed.
Okay. Yeah. You can be possessed by another culture.
But the idea of culture as something you can learn.
Right. Okay.
Right? I can learn to be Chinese.
How about that? Culture must be earned, not learned.
Okay.
Okay, that's the misappropriation
All right,
idea.
That's a good one. Yeah.
All right, so that felt pretty good. We got a lot done. Let's see, we're 30 minutes in. God,
Okay.
do you feel like we could do another one or two? Should we try that?
I feel like we could do one more.
One more, okay, because
Yep.
our brain will hurt. Let's
Yes.
see. Gosh, I have 5 here, so I'm trying to think what would be the most.
Well, no, let's just do 3. Let's just do 3 and see what.
Should I open them up all up one by one? We just do
No. Let's save 2 of them for the next session.
All right. So
and-
do number
and
3.
3.
Okay.
now. Yeah.
I think number 3 is going to be a little more kind of silly. So let's do that. You're probably right. So 5 minutes for number 3.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're never silly.
Okay.
Absurd statement.
Here's number 3.
Oh my. Oh Lord. Oh dear. Okay. Boy, you went with eyes, didn't you?
Well,
Eyes and
I
mice.
didn't actually. It's just that
Disney, the all-seeing eye.
I was I started off. I mean, to be honest, I started off with these sort of forlorn, unloved, Japanese monster figures, but the eyes had it. They just kept popping up, and then I guess I went with that. But also this kind of demonic Mickey I thought was interesting too. Disney, the all-seeing eye. Yeah, actually, that would be great, wouldn't it, to have some graphic with the pyramid and the mouse ears on the pyramid.
Exactly.
Somebody please do that for me. Oh dear, that would be great. Disney, the all-seeing eye. I like it. Thank you.
All right, so what happens to monsters when they're defeated?
Where do they go? Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so,
where do they go? Where do monsters go? I mean, they're usually beaten up by Ultraman or Spectre-Man or any of the Power Rangers or things like that or whatever, and then they go boom. But then, is there a place for defeated monsters?
Mhm.
Do they retrain to not just be monsters but accountants?
Well, I feel in a way like Monsters Inc. was very clever, but it sort of dominated the thought about children's nightmares and things. And this sort of made me think about nightmares a little bit and what what nightmares I had as a child, and they were probably influenced by the culture I grew up in, because I didn't. These were not the things of my nightmares, right? But I do find this demonic Mickey. If I had seen that as a child, I don't think I would have felt the same way about Disney if that had been one of my early impressions.
Right.
But there's something kind of sweet about some of these monsters. Like they're so awkward. But or how about the people that inhabit them? I mean, if it's your job to be, I don't know, cherry blossom guy, and then the audience says no, and then you're out of. I mean, this may have been for a whole generation. This may have been their nightmare, and then it's like, well, we don't like this one anymore. I mean, that's Monsters Inc. again, I guess, but the sort of concept of being relevant and then being irrelevant. Even monsters sort of get dumped after a while because they're not scary, because these look kind of funny now, right?
Right.
But if you were a child in the 50s, this thing would keep you up at night.
Would it, or was it just that week's cannon fodder?
I mean, this kind of thing keeps me up.
I mean, Spectre-Man has to defeat something every week.
What would
so
you?
Something has to be defeated.
If you were this guy, what is this thing?
I mean, it looks like it's a burger monster, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's sort of. This is what happens if you don't finish what's on your plate. It comes to haunt you the next day. Actually, that's kind of like the leftovers. That could be a nightmare. The leftovers. Did you ever have this in your family, where when you were a child you were told to finish everything on your plate, or else somebody would go starving in China, or something would happen that was bad and you were culpable?
No, I was just told that if I was depressed for more than 3 days, I was being self-indulgent.
Oh, you know what?
And that there are people in much worse positions than you. But I was given 3 days to be as depressed as I wanted.
Okay, so that reminds me of my childhood, because I was not allowed to be whiny, and I wasn't given 3 days. I was given like 3 seconds. Basically, my parents would start playing the world's smallest violin and be like, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, this kind of stuff. So I was denied self-pity. so now I just have little pity parties because it feels good, but then I start to feel bad because I've been trained to dislike that.
Dear.
So even this was a problem, because even with my own kids, I sort of, when I hear whining, I know everyone doesn't like it, but for me it was like it really got to me, because I had to quash it within myself. Growing up, right? That was so anyway, the leftovers, I was told to finish what was on my plate. I wasn't like super strict or anything, but to this day, people will say to me, you don't have to be the garbage disposal. It's okay. If you don't want to finish that, just leave it, leave it on the plate, because I see food and I'm thinking, oh, I don't want to waste that. Let me put it in my own body. And so this is, something's happened there. So that was 5 minutes. Let's see, what do we got here? We have, I think Disney, the old seeing eye, is the most. Whoa, let's see. Why does it do that? I think we have to.
Well, we've definitely got to do something with the image there, but I think it's the monsters thing, right? It's either the guy playing the monsters who has to come back every week. It's the designers who have to come up with a new design for a monster every week. And how do you keep that fresh and relevant? And if you think it's scary. And it's also, if we take the larger society thing, doesn't society need monsters? America definitely needs monsters.
Okay.
And I think Britain probably does too. I think every country probably needs its own monsters. That is our resolution, isn't it? We need monsters. But it also lets us go, I'm not that, right? We talk about identity as being what you're not. I'm not that. I'm not a Saturday morning TV cartoon show villain.
Is this to make us feel better about ourselves, or to have an adversary to push against?
I think it's both, right? Is always the monsters are always worse than we are at our worst, and somehow we rise to defeat them.
So there's good and bad involved in this idea, because having monsters, you could have them to
Hmm.
let's see, to contemplate mortality, superiority, um, uh, adversary. So those are some good use of monsters.
Hmm.
And it also makes me wonder out loud. I've heard people answer this question, but I'm just going to pose it again. Why do we like horror movies so much? This is particularly true of younger people. I mean, as you get older, you've seen enough horrific stuff that
Hmm.
it starts to seem a little too close to reality. But young people love horror. This is true of every
And they
generation.
love and young people love roller
Mm.
coasters.
So the
Not universally, but I'd say more than middle-aged people who suddenly start to see them as death traps.
I actually was speaking to a young person recently, who's a teenager, who
Mm.
has this risk assessor brain, where every time they
Oh,
look at a situation, they contemplate all the terrible things that might happen. So they take the lowest risk avoidance approach. And I thought, gosh, this is unlike any teenager I've ever met.
oh my
The
goodness.
risk adjuster. Uh, yes, I don't know if we had that much on our minds at that age, particularly not these sort of things. This image too, I
No.
is sort of an odd one out, but the fact that it's sort of an ad for wasabi chips, but her expression is not a
Mm.
happy one. It's really, I
No.
feel as if this is almost like a COVID poster child. It's sort of we're forced every day, to look at our screens, and sometimes it's mind numbing. This
Mm.
is like Clockwork Orange. Instead of
Mm.
being a punishment to retrain you, it's a daily grind. This could be a coffee ad.
It makes more sense as a
Starbucks.
coffee ad,
Yeah.
but maybe that's what they're selling it as, is wasabi snacks as a stimulant.
So this is the
What does it
it
say?
says
What
wakes
does
you
the
up with
text
every
say?
bite.
Yeah, there you go. So that's exactly what they're going for.
This is Starbucks Zamba.
Wasabi as stimulant. So pain as stimulant.
Pain is stimulant. Uh, Good pain is a stimulant.
Okay, yeah. Whatever doesn't kill me makes me
There we go.
stronger,
Well,
right?
that's the premise.
Nietzsche as advertising executive.
I like that. So that's very funny. What was that? Here's my attempt to spell Nietzsche. Is that right? Okay.
That's great. Well done.
I'm not a good speller, if anyone hasn't noticed. Advertising exec. I love that. So sometimes it feels like Nietzsche is an advertising exec today. The sort of all this nihilism that's going
Mm.
around, sort of
Mm.
anti institution, anti this, anti that.
Yeah.
um, yes, burn, let it all burn. Uh, like the forest fire that comes through, and the seedlings can grow. Burn it down.
There you are. Exactly. Yeah.
There we go. Yes, burn it down so the seedlings can grow. This makes me think too of legacy planning, passing baton from one generation to the next. There's an
Hmm.
interesting author or kind of pontificator that I came across recently, and I haven't read his book. I've just listened to interviews of his. His name is Neil Howe, and he has a book called The Fourth Turning. And his thesis is that every 100 years, there's a predictable revolution that up to now has been a war of some kind in the U.S., and it's true of some other countries, but he's focusing on the U.S. And he says that the reason why this happens in 100-year cycles and the reason why it's patterned and predictable is because within that period of time, there's four or so generations, and they go through very similar patterns of behavior. So even if the culture undergoes various changes, the patterns that underlie it are very similar. So, and the reason why it's a little complicated is because each generation interacts with the other. And then as the people in that generation age, they also start swapping roles with the generation that came before. So you have this kind of cycles within cycles that, in a 100-year pattern, right? So he was saying that that we appear to be approaching the fourth turning, which is the end of this 100-year cycle. And some of the telltale signs of it are that, for example, if you ask people about the COVID response here in the US, and you get an answer from some people that says, look, I think this is overblown and people should just chill and just do what they want. Or you get a response that is, we need stronger authority institutions, we need more discipline. If you get those types of responses and you ask, what generation does it come from? You'll discover it's reversed. It's the baby boomers that are saying, man, chill out, this is totally overblown. And it's the millennials who are saying we need discipline and order and more authority and structure. And so he was sort of saying that the reason that this happens is because the boomers, they came of age in the 60s and they were kind of hedonists, hippies, and everything is possible. And so the generation before them was very disciplined, and the silent generation, those who went through the war. So they created the type of society that allowed boomers to blossom and sort of say, hey, man, I can do whatever I want. But of course, then they go through their change. And so basically the fourth turning is essentially suggesting that the millennials will be like the silent generation. They'll bring back the discipline and order that'll allow the Generation Z to flourish and to be like the boomers all over again. So they're the ones that will benefit. But what I thought was interesting in what he was saying, I don't know if he was saying this exactly, but my takeaway was he was suggesting that the millennials will need to be led by someone initially who's not a millennial. And that would normally fall to a Generation Xer. And why that's so peculiar is because Generation Xers are predominantly people that want to be left alone. They're libertarian, they believe in conspiracy theories, they hate authority, and they want government out of their lives and to do their own thing and be left alone. And they're very cynical. And this is as a result of having gone through some very terrible periods economically and historically in their lives, which is us. We're right in the middle of the Gen X, and we're right in the middle. And what that suggests is that a Gen Xer, probably somebody who knows how the sausage is made and understands all the cynicism of the age, nevertheless decides that they are going to work towards a better future. And they appeal to the millennials because the millennials will be their disciplined army to create this kind of brave new world. So if you look at it from that perspective, you can see why Bernie Sanders was not the person to take forward the millennials. I mean, he ignited their passions, but he was not a cynical Gen Xer who knows how to get it done, right? Because in a way, he was too nice. And you need someone who's more ruthless, like a sort of a Franklin Roosevelt type who pits different ideas against each other and then chooses the pragmatic outcome. So that's what the society here is waiting for. The seasoned Gen Xer who says, okay, I know how this works, but I'm going to work for a better tomorrow. So there we go. Anyway, very long outro to what I think was a fun process. And I think we got some interesting topics, issues, and resolutions out of that. So I thank you for your brain power and contributing your cognitive energy to this frisson
My pleasure. My pleasure.
of imagery and ideas that we had this morning, this evening, wherever you are in the world. And
Yep.
remember, laudanum, because babies should be seen and not heard. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right, so